Hey everybody, welcome. Jeff Horton with the Jeff Horton Band. As I've been posting online, there have been a lot of questions coming up about tubes. Partly due to a video that I posted the other day of this amp, the Supro Blues King 12, where I changed out both the power tube and the preamp tube. But when I changed the preamp tube, I changed it from a 12AX7 to a 12AU7, and I illustrated the difference. Since then, there have been a lot of folks asking questions about how tubes affect the sound, or do they affect the sound, and in no way, shape, or form am I the know-it-all of tubes, but I've done a lot of experimenting myself with my own amps, and I just wanted to kind of pass on a little bit of what I've learned. So the main thing is, let me back up. With power tubes, you're gonna get an overall change in the sound of the amp to a certain degree, depending on what tubes you're going to, and also honestly depending on what your ear hears. I kind of got into a friendly debate with a guy the other day about this amp, and in his opinion, not actually having heard the amp live, he owned one that was bone stock. He felt that the tone wasn't that great, and if you changed the tubes, it wasn't really going to make that big of a difference. Well, for me and to my ear, it makes a huge difference on any of the amps I've done it to. So quickly to talk about power tubes, there are a million different brands out there, probably not that many, but close. One of the places that I go when I'm researching tubes and want to learn more about what that particular tube, what its sound shape is a place called the Tube Store. It's thetubestore.com, and they have great explanations on all of their tubes as to where they come from, what they're comparable to, what the hardness rating means, and then it really gets into breaking down all that type of stuff. So I would definitely suggest going there. The Tube Store they're a great resource, and then the Tube, or not the Tube, it's called tubedepot.com, is another place that I go. So power tubes, I prefer Millards or JJs if I can't find a Millard. Millards seem to have a little bit more clarity to them, and for whatever reason they also seem to have, it seems like it just gives the amp a hair more punch. I don't think it does, it's just an illusion. This is an electroharmonics tube, excuse me. Any of these in the power section, for me, with my amps, are great. Now, where we can have fun is with the preamp tubes. For the most part, and there's more to it than this, but I'm just gonna be basic. There are 3 different types of preamp tubes. There's a 12AT7, a 12AX7, and a 12AU7. And it gets more complicated from there, but just to stay kind of on the surface and just be basic about what they do. Most amps in the volume section, so if you have an amp that has multiple preamp tubes, when you're looking at them, you kind of basically just line it up with where your volume knob is, and that's going to be your preamp tube for the volume on most amps. Most amps are going to come with a 12AX7. It's the middle of the road preamp tube. It isn't going to break up real early and give you that dirty distortion, but it's not going to break up too late. It just sits right in the middle, and it's what most people use, and most people never change them. A 12AT7 is common to find in like the reverb tube socket on old blackface Fender amps, and probably a lot more, but my experience having owned those amps, that's where I would find an AT7. But you could put an AT7 in the volume section if you're a guy that wants to play at lower volume but you want the amp to break up sooner. Look at putting an AT7 in there. What I do is, especially on low wattage amps like this, 15 watts, is I like to get all that I can get out of the amp before it breaks up. So I go to a 12AU7, which allows me to turn the amp up further than I would have been able to with the other two types of tubes and keep the amp pretty clean. Now, for people that have seen this video, or if you want to go on my channel and find the video where I did the preamp tube change and listen to it, you'll hear that I talk about, in this amp, it's a 12AU7 long plate version, which means it has even that much more hardness to it before it will break up than a regular AU7. So as you can see, you can really get into it and go crazy with it. I know that, and I'd shared this, it was in a post the other day, Stevie Ray Vaughan, read this somewhere, was famous for taking any of his amps and he went right to that volume preamp tube and popped that sucker out, and he either went to an AU7 or he went to the military grade version of an AU7, which I was reminded of what that number was the other day, and I can't off the top of my head think of it. But if you go to thetubestore.com, they will have it in the explanation, because that's where I first read about it. So anyways, just wanted to quickly go over some things about tubes. I would strongly recommend using the Tube Store as a resource. They're incredible. If you have any questions for me, or if you have any other questions and I think I can answer them, I'll do my best. If not, I will probably recommend you to the Tube Store. But I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you found it informative, and I hope you have a little bit of time to experiment with playing with tubes in your amp. So thank you guys very much. Jeff Horton out. Keep the blues alive.